Back in 2008, I found myself dealing with a group in Iraq. I found myself in Iraq dealing with a group of heavily armed men. That brought the room down. I should be very clear about this, sorry. I was there, they were American military, I was there as a comedian, they were the audience. This is supposed to be a TED Talk, they all start with that great hook. It's very manipulative. But really, in 2008, I was in Iraq. It was a stand-up tour, 2 guys and me, and we went to combat outposts and forward operating bases. You think you're a tough audience, try 19-year-old Marines. And did I mention it was August when we were there? If you haven't been to Iraq in August, don't go. While we were there, it hit 50 degrees centigrade, which I think works out to, I don't know, something like 600 Fahrenheit. I'm not good at math. But there I was, middle-aged lesbian, in front of a group of 19-year-old Marines who had not seen a woman in quite some time. And it was my job to make them laugh. Now, before I tell you what I said to make them laugh, let me share with you my big TED idea. Because that's what TED Talks do, right? Let me have this big dramatic opening. Now hold that thought. I'm going to go over here and lay some really profound stuff on you, and then slowly we'll work our way back, and you'll figure out why the hell I told you this to begin with. So, my big TED idea is this, that humor is a love language. Humor is a love language. It's a way to say things that we couldn't or wouldn't say directly. Now, how can you use this love language at work? Well, the same way you use it in every other part of your life, to create emotional connection. Because laughter, even just a smile, I'm not trying to make comedians here, I don't need the competition. Laughter, even just a smile, is emotion. And emotion is a necessary building block of trust. And you need trust before you have any chance of getting someone to take action. And that action can be something big, like working with you or funding your project, or it could be something as small as giving you the benefit of the doubt and continuing to listen to you for another few minutes. Humor is a love language, and it's one of the most powerful tools we have as humans, let alone as leaders. Now, whenever I talk about humor at work, I always get a little bit of pushback, and that pushback is usually around credibility. But I think it's absolutely possible to take your work seriously without taking yourself seriously. You don't have to take my word for it, I wouldn't. But a good speaker friend of mine is a former British commando. And we've had a lot of interesting conversations about humor as a tool, and he absolutely believes that humor is one of the most powerful tools he had when he was working. And he's given me a lot of examples, but one of the most important examples I think he gave me was the way he would use it to create emotional connection when he was with village elders. He was trying to build trust and get them to help him and work together. Now, this guy, he's there, Mr. Army Commando Man, 6'4", by the way. I know that's not 6'4". That's not even 5'4". Mr. Army Commando Man, he's not gonna be a comedian. He's not gonna be a clown. What, am I a clown? Do I amuse you? Goodfellas fans? No? Okay, wonderful. It's a wonderful movie. Joe Pesci won the Oscar in 1991. I recommend you all see it. But he's not going to be a clown. But he needs to use humor. He needs to create emotional connection. He needs to build trust quickly. And what he would do is maybe be a little awkward with a local custom, or drink a little bit of the local booze and kind of give it a little extra something. Whew, that's strong. Anything he had to do to get a little bit of a laugh or a smile, to build emotional connection. And if you think that undermined his credibility, well, you tell him. 6'4", Mr. Army Commando Man. Humor is a love language, and it gives us a way to say things that we couldn't or wouldn't say directly. It gives us a way to say things between the lines. We all use it. We all use it even without thinking about it. I did it the other day. I was waiting in line for a coffee at the train station, and the guy in front of me in line was just being an absolute jerk to the kid behind the counter. So when I got up there, I just said, "He seems nice." Got me a laugh. Also got me a free biscotti. I don't want to brag. But it's a way to say things between the lines. And I thought about what it was I was saying between the lines in that case. And I guess it was, "I see you. I want you to feel good." Now, that is definitely something I would not have said directly to the kid behind the counter at the Starbucks at Paddington at 7 o'clock in the morning. Can you imagine that? "I see you. I want you to feel good." Leave there in handcuffs. Humor is a love language. It's one of the most powerful tools we have, and you're missing a trick if you're not using it. And if you think that I'm overstating this, forget work for a second. Think about what's on your list of qualities you want in a partner in life, in a spouse. Your non-negotiables, your must-haves. How many people have sense of humor on that list? Yep. Anyone not have it on there? Anyone just think, laughing? Take it or leave it. I don't care. Of course we do. Because it's emotional connection. So it's a way to say things that we couldn't or wouldn't say directly. I mean, Paul, Mr. Big Army Commando Man, was absolutely using humor to say things between the lines when he was there in these very uncomfortable situations. And I actually asked him specifically what it was in those situations that he was trying to say between the lines. And he said this. He said, "I was trying to say that inside this uniform is a person. If that's not leadership, I'm not sure what is. I hold the authority here, but inside this authority is a person." That's kind of powerful. So as long as we're talking about humor and credibility, there is one important distinction that I want to make. And that is the distinction between humor that is self-aware and humor that is self-deprecating. Humor that's self-deprecating means you're putting yourself down just to get a laugh. You can do it, it works, but that's the kind of humor that damages credibility. Especially if you're something that I like to call a woman. Or queer, or a person of color, or any other minority. Because we don't know the biases that are held by the people we're speaking to. And if they may already think you're less than, why are you going to make their argument for them? So I'm not a fan of humor that is self-deprecating. I am very much a fan of humor that is self-aware. Self-awareness is simply acknowledging whatever your audience might be noticing or thinking. It's simply reflecting back to them whatever's in that thought bubble above their head. It's acknowledging the elephant in the room to remove that as a potential distraction. Like Paul, Mr. 6'4" Army commando man, standing in a room full of civilians. Speaking of civilians, let's go back to me in Iraq. Oh, look how I did that. Oh, so graceful. You don't get daytime Emmys for nothing. The power of this writing. So there I am, middle-aged lesbian, in front of a group of very sweaty 19-year-old Marines. I have to make them laugh. I have to build emotional connection with them, and I have to do it quickly so that they'll continue to listen to me for the next 29 minutes. I used self-awareness, and it worked every time. What I did was my opening joke every time I'd come on stage, I'd let them take me in, and then I would be self-aware. I said, the big bases get the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. You get me. Now, when I do this joke, I usually have a slide behind me that shows the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. I don't have a slide, so in case anyone here is not familiar with the American football phenomenon that is the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, I want you to picture the Spice Girls, then, not now, unless you'd like to, wearing bikinis, jumping up and down, waving pom-poms. That's not me. But that's not self-deprecating, that's just acknowledging that's not me. And the big bases for the American military, that is who got the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. We were these little tiny combat outposts and forward operating bases. They knew who was at the big bases, and I knew that they knew, and they knew that I knew, and okay, we all knew. Humor is a love language. And it's an incredibly powerful tool for connection. Please don't be afraid of it. And speaking of fear, though, there is one thing that Claire asked me to address, and that is what to do when people get humor wrong. And it's something that I get asked a lot, and here's how I frame it. Humor is a tool, just like a hammer is a tool. You can use a hammer to hurt someone. You can use a hammer, it's a better joke if it's more profound if I do it in the right order. And here's how I frame it. Humor is a tool, just like a hammer is a tool. You can use a hammer to build something, or you can use a hammer to hurt someone. Now, sometimes people make mistakes, and that hurt is unintentional. How many people have hit their thumb with a hammer? How many people did it on purpose? It's fewer. People get it wrong. My mom had a saying, she would say, people are idiots. She was very direct, my mom. 4'9", very, very direct. People are idiots. But it's true, people get it wrong. Now, when it goes wrong around me, I tend to use humor to diffuse the situation. And I want to be very, very clear about this. I'm not suggesting that anyone should accept anything that makes them uncomfortable. But I will tell you that in stand-up, there's something called vetting the heckler. Vetting the heckler is when a comedian's on stage and you hear someone say something and you think, did I just hear that? And so you need to test whether or not you just heard what you thought you heard, both the line and the intent. And usually what we'll do is we'll throw out a stock line or something in the direction of whoever said it, something like, oh, you missed rehearsal, we cut your part out. Not great, but now you can gauge the reaction of that person. If they laugh, okay, we can all move on. If they get belligerent, well, now we know where we stand. And the evening is probably not going to end well for them. When it happens in real life, when people say something stupid to me, which happens a lot, I try to vet the heckler. And I will usually smile and say something like, "Dad." "I don't think we say that anymore, Dad." Or I'll smile and I'll say, "Oh, none taken." It takes a second. And I'm absolutely using humor as a love language in those cases. I'm using humor to say something between the lines. And what I'm saying between the lines in those cases is, you've come very, very close to offending me, but because I like you, or because I have to work with you, I'm desperately trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. And I will say that 8.5 times out of 10, that's heard. And people will fall over themselves trying to apologize, especially if there's someone else in the room who's laughing at what I said. But again, if they double down on the insult, well, now we know where we stand. And I will take whatever action is necessary, if it involves HR or whatever it is. Let me also be very clear about this. If someone says to you, "Don't take it so personally, it's just a joke," I'll tell you, as a comedian and someone who has worked in comedy for 27 years, that's gaslighting. There's only one acceptable use for humor at work, and that is to build connection. Humor is a love language. If you'd like to show me some love, I'll be at the bar later. That didn't sound right. What I mean is, I will be sticking around for the afternoon session, and I would love to have any conversation you'd like to have. Maybe I can help you or your team. This has been a Comedian's Guide to Humor at Work. I've been Beth Sherman, and you've been wonderful. Thank you.